so much to our African American community. It used to be Fred Meyer's. This is the place that we have come for years and years and years to convene, to eat, to have coffee, to read books. And it was attacked. All the businesses here are owned by people of color. From our Latinos to our African Americans, to our indigenous, to our Asian community. And they were attacked on last night. And we are not okay with that. That is not okay in anybody's book, in anybody's place, in any arena and any area. And these are the faces you need to see. We get to control our narrative. We get to control what happens in our neighborhood. And so much work has been put into this place to make sure that after all the gentrification that happened, we still had a place where we could convene, where we could come together even when we disagree and still have conversations and still come to resolve and still move to action. We literally have the ability to have a coffee space that anybody in our African American community can come and use for free, because we wanted to make sure that this is a space that remains a part of our community. So this was beyond an attack simply on what you thought was about the police. You attacked our community, and we will never stand for that. And I will say this just as strong and just as vocal. All I could imagine is my husband or my son or a friend or a relative being locked in a place, boarded up, and then set on fire and have nowhere to go. That is never okay. That's terrorism, period. That has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. That has nothing to do with the police reform and movement. That is something that is not our voice and not what we stand for. And you did not come just to hear from me, but you came to hear from our community. And so I'm going to move out of the way, and we're going to have one of our residents of our community, Miss Carolyn Leonard, come and speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Leonard. 6 generations of my family live in Oregon, and that's unusual for black people. What happened in terms of the violence is not to be tolerated for any reason. You got our attention. There are people all over here that are willing to work for change. We need not to focus on who is right, but what is right. Even the police, even me. There may be a time when I speak, but I'm not correct. And if it's not right, don't raise your hand and go with me. This street was renamed with the help of the people of this community. I chaired the committee. What went off last night was right in my neighborhood. I am a half a block off of here. It is never tolerable to use that kind of violence. It's over. Let it stop everywhere in the world. Initiatives of Change is an international organization that works on race and all the problems that we're dealing with. Oregon has groups that work on it. We need to stop the violence and move to action.
That's right.
And there are many things we can do. There are all kinds of people out of here with of every race and every culture who can sit down and we can talk. We must build trust. And for those of you who don't know the history of Oregon, I would suggest that we get the book Trust Building. For more than 50 years, good Oregonians have worked toward peace and justice and reconciliation. I will not stand by and let anybody tear down what we are building.
Say that, Carol.
I will never do that. And there will be times when we'll disagree. But if you prove to me you're right, I'm on your team. We must listen and we must respond with integrity. If it's our best friend and they're wrong, we need to let them know you're wrong. For people who don't know about the movement, learn. I'm going to give a list of things that I've done. I have traveled around the world. I've met with presidents of nations in an effort to reconcile our differences. I didn't go to South Africa, but I followed it very closely. And there are models that we can get, and we can move toward building an inclusive community. This movement is not about tearing anybody down.
That's right.
It's about us coming together as one humanity and working together. And when we're wrong, standing up and saying, I'm wrong, and and asking for forgiveness. So I say, let this be the last day that any of us does anything violent in the name of justice and peace. They don't fit in the same sentence. I thank you, and I ask all of you to join us in keeping our community and building it, not tearing it down.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Ms. Leonard. We appreciate your words. And now another icon within our community, Mr. Tony Hobson.
So hi, I'm Tony Hobson, President and CEO of Self-Enhancement, Inc. We got a lot of speakers, so I'm just going to be very, very short, very, very brief. What I would say is that we should not get distracted. This isn't the first time that these kinds of things happen once we get a moment to put our issues out front. I know whoever was behind this that think they were doing it, or perhaps are trying to have us think that they were doing it in the name of Black Lives Matter. We know that it was just the opposite. Not only is it not about Black Lives Matter, it's against Black Lives Matter. And that's what we have to understand, is that don't allow ourselves to get distracted. I'm almost upset that we even hear and have to put this kind of attention on them. That to a degree gives them just a little bit of play right now today, because we're talking about them instead of talking about a movement that we are trying to put together in behalf of Black people and unifying all of us. So let me just say this. I want to just give a shout out to all our young people that are out there on the front line every day pushing the envelope on this issue. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing for those of us who have been in this fight for not 10, not 20, not 30, but for 40 years. Many of us in this town have been in this fight. So to see our young people stand up with courage, putting themselves on the line for this fight, is exactly what needs to happen. And let me just also give a shout out to all my white brothers and sisters for also showing up. We are glad you are in the front lines with us, because it's that effort along with our effort that's going to make the difference. And let me just close by just saying one more time, do not be distracted. Keep our eye on the ball. And the ball is about Black Lives Matter and changing the condition that we're in. It is not about chasing a few fools who create violence that we saw here last night. Thank you.
Let the church say amen. Now we have Ernesto Fonseca from Hacienda.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for letting me speak in support of our brothers and sisters in the Black community. I have to say that, for centuries, the brown, Black, Asian, Native American communities have suffered a lot of violence. That is not what we want for anyone, including our white and brothers and sisters. We don't want any of that. We don't support that type of violence or that type of response to anything that we're trying to promote. A few weeks ago, George Floyd brought a lot of attention again to the Black Lives Matter movement. That movement is about peace. It's about coming together. It's about systemic change, not making our communities worse than what they are currently. We are not about destruction. We're about coming together, leading with love and peace. When Mahatma Gandhi, if anybody has seen that movie, stood together with many of his comrades, he said, you can break my bones, but you will never break my spirit. But I won't retaliate back with violence. And we today stand for exactly the same principle. We want to rebuild this community together with love and with justice, not with destruction of this kind. Hacienda CDC and the rest of the Latino community stands together with the Latino community as well as with the Black community for peace and love. Thank you all.
Thank you. Now we have Carolina Castañeda from Hacienda. She's also a member of the Latino Advisory Committee for the Portland Police.
Thank you. Yes, I am here to represent Hacienda, the Latino community. We stand with our Black brothers and sisters, people of color, brown people, and just to remind everybody that our language, the language of our community, is that of shared meals, not shared violence, shared dance, shared singing together, and for sure, shared dialogue. The reason why I decided to join the Latino Advisory Committee is to have peaceful collaboration and dialogue with the police department to support and to stand with our Black brothers and sisters, indigenous people, Asian communities, as well as the Latino community. We condemn any act of violence against Black, brown, any type of people, and against any of our community spaces. Thank you.
Next, we have our new Chief of Police, Chuck Lovell.
Thank you, Nike. I'm not going to say too much. I know there's some very powerful community voices here that I want to be heard. And the acts that took place here last night are not only reprehensible, but they're evil. That's right. Barricading a building and setting fire to it with people inside. And I'll remind you, the key word there is people. Whether it's here, whether it's at the Justice Center, there are people inside these buildings that we're trying to protect. And the acts that have been going on throughout this city while regular Portlanders are asleep is reprehensible, and it needs to stop, and stop today.
That's right.
And now we're going to have our very own Mayor Willer.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to stand here with leaders and community members from the Black community and the BIPOC community to join them in denouncing the violence that took place here last night. I've said from day one that I'll stand with those who are grieving, those who are seeking justice, those who are working to end racial inequities, not just in our city, but all around the country. I have said from day one, I stand with you. And within the city, we're not just listening, but we're also taking concrete action. This is a transformative time, and that transformation is taking place each and every day.
That's right.
But what happened here last night, with doors being nailed shut, barred shut, with fires being set to the outside of the building with people inside, that is not transformation. What happened here isn't helping to bring about any meaningful change, reform, or an end to the historic racism that all of us are joined together in seeking to eliminate. Last night was plainly and simply about arson. It was about destruction. It was about endangering lives. It's blatant criminal violence, violence that is totally unacceptable. And I'm going to speak to my fellow members of the white community. If you were here last night and you participated in what happened here, I hope when you see this community standing together and standing strong, you come to the acknowledgement that you have made a horrible, horrendous miscalculation. You have distracted from the importance of this nationwide movement that seeks justice and racial equity for Black people in America.
That's right.
And you have distracted from that movement. It was an attack on our community, and more specifically, it was an attack on the African American community here in Portland.
That's right.
The space behind me has historical significance for our Black community. Every business in this building is owned by an entrepreneur of color. Every business in this building. It's a gathering space for our community, and it's a place that over the years has allowed the community to come and preserve important community values and to share perspectives and ideas. What happened here last night, I've said it before and I'll say it again today, as the mayor of this city, it is unacceptable. It will not be tolerated. I'd like to thank all of these members of the community for inviting me here today to share in this important moment. Thank you all for your continued leadership, your perseverance, and the long march that you've engaged in towards justice. I stand with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Wheeler. We have a few of our business owners somewhere close to me. Is Jamal still here from Champions? And do we still have Joe from Mid-K around if someone can wave them this way? Jamal's going to talk, and we're asking Joe to come and stand. Here are literally our business owners that are impacted by this directly, and so we want to make sure they have space.
All right, appreciate it. Don't have a whole lot to say, but just want to put it out there, man. If anybody is not sure what community looks like, this is the opportunity for you to see exactly what community looks like, what community sounds like. I appreciate all the leaders that are here. You guys are examples for people like myself. You guys have showed us what the fight looks like, have showed us what leadership looks like, and I appreciate that to the utmost. And anybody that's confused about what this Northeast community is all about, it's about that leadership. It's about building. It's about coming together for a common cause. And so I'm with my brand is Champions, and Champions about those that fight for a cause, right? Those that come together to build and to grow. And that's what we're doing. It's not about tearing down. So that whatever went on here last night was not a part of this community, because our community don't get down like that. So if you're looking for an example, this is what it's about. If you want to follow suit and be a part of this community, this is how you gotta roll. So that's all I gotta put out there. And thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Jamal. Also want to acknowledge top to bottom, who is not able to be present here today, but did go down and we had a good conversation. And again, when we're looking at our communities of color, Latinos, our Asians, our African Americans, our indigenous, so many were impacted last night and not represented, but we need them to be able to feel safe, to be able to have this space, to have that voice and not get it hijacked by, as Tony Hobson said, a distraction. So at this time, we're going to invite Pastor Hennessy and then Pastor Holt.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Holt, and lived in this community. My mom lives right down the street. My office is right around the corner. And I want to say that we've got to call terrorism terrorism. This has nothing to do with protesting change. This is the act of cowardice and irresponsibility. That this time is a time for us as a people to call truth, truth, light, light, darkness, darkness, and for a people like we are to demand responsible activity. So, as a challenge or a charge to those who are participating in irresponsible activity, it's time to stop. And don't align it with the efforts that have been associated with responsible activity. Tony Hobson talked about it being a distraction, and I just want to piggyback on that for a moment and say a distraction from what? A distraction from being responsible from this standpoint of owning the systemic racism that's brought us to this point. A distraction from looking at policies and processes. A distraction from looking at the systems and the structures that need to be torn down to be rebuilt. I would say that we as a people of color, and we as a black community, we're not asking for a handout. We're not even asking for a hand up. We're asking for you to own and put your hands to tearing down what caused this to be in the first place. And the only people who can reverse the systems are those who help to perpetuate the systems. The only people who can help to change the systems are those who still help to protect those systems. We've got significant challenges, not just in this neighborhood, but in the extended neighborhood, because a host of us have been gentrified and moved out and displaced, live in Rockwood and live in Gresham. And when a mayor steps down, and when a city manager steps down, and a chief steps down and then returns, I think we've got to address that as well. So it's Portland, it's greater Portland, it's everything that's addressing us as a people of color. It's time for those of us who are committed to right to be committed to right. For those of us who are committed to truth to be committed to truth. I challenge all of us to be courageous enough to call what needs to be called wrong, wrong, and then to think about and engage with and go to work about building what needs to be right. What happened here last night had nothing to do with this protest. What happened here last night is something that, to me, is an act of a coward. To show up in the dark, to close some doors and then set a building on fire, That's a terrorist activity, and I agree with Pastor Green. That's attempted murder, and we need to call it that and address it from that standpoint. And then those of us who know people who are participating, call them out. Yeah.
Amen.
If we're going to bring change,
Amen, it's
going to be change because we are authentically willing to pay the price to do it. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. So thank you so much. And again, we're making space for our community members. So at this time, I'm going to call Mr. Ron Herndon, another icon in our community. And then following him, an amazing woman that I am so glad to be able to call friend will be Mrs. Kim.
Thank you, Nike. When I found out about what happened here last night, it reminded me of all the discussion that's been going on the last week about Black Wall Street in Tulsa. I happen to have grown up with my grandparents, and one of their best friends was part of that. He was one of those black men, if you ever see those pictures or a photo of all those black men being taken to the fairground, he was one of those. I heard about that when I was a little kid. So when I hear about somebody burning something down, I think about that as an act that's always been used against black people.
Amen.
Burn down our business.
Amen.
Burn down our churches. Burn down our schools.
Amen.
That is a tactic that has been to destroy black people, not help black people. So whoever the demented individual was that did this last night, if somewhere, excuse my French, in your rabbit-ass mind, you think that that's supposed to be helpful, why don't you go back to West Hell or whatever hole you came from? You are not helping us. Does there need to be reform in the police department? Who's going to argue with that? Does there need to be reform in the school system? Yes. But are you going to reform it by burning down a school? How about those banks that participated in redlining? They need to be reformed. Are you going to burn down the bank? Where does it stop? Do not do this and think that somehow you are doing black people a favor. You are not. And let me just end by saying this. Tony hit the nail on the head. This is a distraction. But guess what? We've been through this before. We've seen the burning before. That has never stopped us, and this will not stop us either. Thank you very much.
And now we're asking Ms. Kimberly Dixon if she will come up and speak to us, another pioneer of our community and someone who's in the trenches every single day fighting for our community.
I hope we're disturbed. I hope that collectively you can feel. For those of us who continue to enunciate, this is unprecedented. This is unprecedented here for us. You've heard that it's not okay. I need for you to understand whose agenda is getting promoted here. Because this doesn't look like anything for anybody that looks like me. This does not look like there's any kind of celebration happening for my community. And if you allow those that you know to continue to promote things like this and hijack, we've heard distracted. Thank you, Mr. Hobson. Distracted, but literally trying to hijack the positive movement of unshackling. What did I just hear from Pastor Holt? It's unshackle. Take the shackles off. Take the shackles of opportunity that we have been restricted from. That's part of what this movement is talking about. And you want to come in here and do damage in our community?
Come on, Kim.
You are some kind of special. You are some kind of special. You don't represent us.
That's right.
Here's what you can do. In the last 2 weeks, I have been on 2 homicides, standing with families for over 5 hours. You want to get engaged? Come stand out here. We're accepting applications at the crisis response team. We can give you a jacket and some training to get yourself involved. Do that. Come mentor some youth. Do that. Don't do this no more, because it will not be tolerated at all.
And we're not going to hold you much longer. We just have a few more speakers. We're going to ask if you can come in this order. We're going to ask Dulio to come, and then Sam Sachs is going to come and bring a message from Senator Gordly.
I didn't know I was going to talk to just a few minutes ago. I was asked to speak. I have a lot of emotion around this, and so I don't know how it'll come out. But first I wanted to say, let you know who I am. I'm Sergeant Kenneth Dulio. I was part of the gun violence reduction team. I'm a member of the community for the past 25 plus years. I've raised my family in Portland for that whole time. I'm engaged in the community. I've been a high school football coach for the last 20 plus years. This, I want everyone to know, for officers, this is painful.
For the community,
It's tearing them up inside, and not just the white officers. For the black officers, the forgotten is probably twice as hard. They have families that aren't speaking to them, etc. The reason it's painful is officers in the city of Portland truly, deeply care. Officers would risk their life for anybody in any situation of any race. And to see the division that's happened is hurtful, and the attack on officers. Officers are for change. We're against what happened in Minneapolis. We're against police brutality. We're against division amongst races. And we're against the violence. And this show of support here by the community, I think, means a ton to officers. It really does. This is what we've been asking. We hear that, yeah, the community still supports you, but we haven't felt it for the last several weeks. It's been really hard. So I would encourage you to, with this movement, bring the officers with you. Let us stand side by side, shoulder to shoulder, interlock arms of any race.
that's right.
We want and are for the same thing that the movement wants.
That's right.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sam Sachs. I am a lifelong Portlander. I was born here in 1968. My family's been here since the 1940s. I'm the founder of the No Hate Zone nonprofit focused on ending hate, racism in our community through education, community engagement, and advocacy. I also have the distinct pleasure and honor of being a dear friend to Senator Louise Gordly. She's been a mentor, she's been a friend, and over the last 11 years we check in and talk quite frequently. About 2-3 days ago, she called me and asked me to reach out to people in our community to stop the violence. Her concern is the trauma that is being inflicted on the community, the black and brown indigenous community, but also the trauma that is being inflicted on police officers and their families and their relatives. She says that the violence does not stand for the violence that is being perpetrated, whether it's tear gas, whether it's rubber bullets, is not what she stands for. The violence against this place, the Justice Center, is not what she stands for. She is very disheartened to see what happened last night next to a street named after Martin Luther King Jr., a man who was for peace. Her message to everyone out there, to the community, to the police, to the people that came here and desecrated this holy ground and brought damage to this place. Stop. Please, stop the violence. If you can't stop, take a pause. Take a time out. Give people an opportunity to heal, to deal with the trauma. If you know Senator Louise Gordly, you know that the most important thing to her is dealing with our mental health and with our trauma. The black people in this community have been dealing with trauma for hundreds of years, for decades. This is not going to end overnight. If you really care about moving forward, stop the violence and give people a time to heal. If you really care about black and brown communities, when this is done, come back down here and fix what you broke. The message from Louise Gordly is to stop the violence. She asks you, she begs you to pause and give people, community members and police officers, an opportunity to deal with the trauma and to heal and come together so we can move forward as a community. Now, a message from me. I've been coming here for 11 years or more with these individuals over here, the Youth Violence Prevention Program with Antoinette, with the Portland Police, to bring people together for peace and unity, for hope and for healing. How dare you come down to the place that we have been coming for years to try to do that, to try to bring peace, to try to bring hope, to try to deal with the trauma. How dare you come down here on Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue in an area that has predominantly been black for decades, has been gentrified and pushed out. And now you want to come back down here for your cause and say that your message is this is your message? Come on. It's about you. It ain't about black people. It ain't about justice. It ain't about hope. And it ain't about peace. And it's not about trauma or helping people to deal with the trauma. How dare you come down here? Stop. This is not a challenge to you, so please don't take that as a challenge. I neither condone or condemn. I understand what is happening in our community. And I applaud the young people that are marching in the streets. Continue to march. Continue to fight for justice. But violence is not the answer. And I'll end with where I started, the no-hate zone. As a Jewish male growing up in this society, I faced anti-Semitism, and I used violence to deal with it when I was younger. The no-hate zone is about trying to find other ways to deal with the trauma and the pain that we have, and violence is not the answer. Please, if you don't listen to me, listen to Senator Louise Gordly, an elder, a mentor, someone who's been in this community for decades. Stop the violence. Thank you.
And we can't continue to hold you out in the sun forever. So our last two speakers are going to be Lionel, and then we're going to have Pastor Hennessy close us out.
How you guys doing? First and foremost, thank you guys for coming out here. My name is Lionel Irving. I am from this community. I live in Northeast Portland, one of the few brothers remaining, and I will tell you that I was here last night. I was here, and I'm going to tell you why I was here. Because we cannot allow those guys to steal the narrative. I come out here to tell the people what I want. Because there's only a few people. It was 200 or 300 people out here. And it was 30 or 40 people who was causing destruction. So the other 260 people, they wanted to know how could they help. So I challenge the brothers in this community to come out to these protests. They can't give you a microphone fast enough because they want to hear what you got to say. But you got to come up here and be on the front line. Don't allow them to speak for us and to give our demands. We got to come out here. We have to stand up. And so these guys that's doing this stuff, I asked this dude. I said, man, why'd you do that? That's me and Kay. I know that's a good place. I know that place. He said, I'm doing that for you. I said, there's no way you could be doing that for me. You are a misrepresentation of the move, and you are stalling the progress that can be made. So if you want to come into this movement and you want to really tackle systemic racism, you got to come in the name of love. You can't oppress the oppressor. That ain't gonna never work. You got to come with a different tactic, and it starts with our community. We have to stand up. I've been downtown. I got my pregnant lady out there with me downtown running around because I got a baby protester in her, right? So I've been downtown, and I've been around. Man, I've been seeing 90% of the crowd is white people. And I love them for coming out there. I thank them all the time for coming out there. But I challenge the brothers and the people of this community to come out there and stand with them and let your voice be heard. Don't let them represent you. Don't let them steal the narrative. Stand in the name of love and come out here and correct this stuff. Don't let them tear our neighborhood down. And then, because when they get mad, when the police get mad, they beat this stuff up, they're not going to be mad. They're going to say, this is the Black Lives Matters movement did this. They going to put a tag on us. I know it ain't, but that's what the few people, the bad apples, are going to point at. Oh, look what they're doing. They're rioting. They're stealing. We got to come out here and stop that. We got to police the protest because it's for the people. We said we don't want police reform. If the police are going to reform, then we have to step up and take some of the slack that they're going to let off. And that's as simple as that, man. So I challenge you brothers that know me in this community. I'm born and raised in here. And I've been on both sides of the law, in prison, and now I'm a productive citizen. You come out here and you stand with these people in the name of love. Thank you for having me.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is J.W. Matt Hennessy. I'm the pastor of the historic Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church. I co-chair the Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon and Interfaith Peace and Action Collaborative. I'd like to begin by asking you, particularly in the press, to look over to my right and left. And I'm going to ask every faith leader if you will raise your hand. I need them to know that faith leaders are out here today because we are not about to allow people to come into our community and do this kind of destruction. Much has been said. Much has already been said, and I'm grateful that Pastor Nike was able to find Sister Carolyn, because when I moved to this city, this street was changing from Union Avenue to Martin Luther King. And I'm here to tell you that I recall all of the comments that were made against this street being named that. Among them were the fact that it was economically deprived. We have worked hard over these 30-some years to invest economically in this street, and we care very deeply about this street and about why we are standing where we are. I want this police chief to know that we support him. I want the police bureau to know that we are working alongside with you. As I have said many times, when our police bureau is doing great works, I'm going to be right there with you. When y'all mess up, I'm going to tell you about it. Amen belongs right there. That's all there is to it. That is the way we roll. That is the way we roll. When I found out what happened here early this morning, I came and parked my car right down on this street, and I start walking to every business that was open all the way to Safeway. And when I went into the businesses that were open, I said to them, I am so sorry that this happened. And I want the perpetrators to understand that I may have been apologizing for you, but I want to be real clear. I didn't have a thing to do with this, nor did my people have anything to do with this. And it's extremely important that you understand. When I talked to one of the business owners here, he said, I've got it all on camera and video. We saw everybody who was doing and perpetrating this. Well, I have a message. In addition to the messages that you've already heard about distraction and about trying to take away our narrative, I want to be real clear. My message is this: get your knee off our neck. That is what you are doing when you do stuff like this. Get your knee off our neck. If I were to walk in your neighborhood, because 95% of you are white, Just showing up would cause calls to the police bureau. I don't have to set anything on fire. All we have to do is show up. And you think you've got the privilege to come into our community and start knocking out windows and doors. You've got something totally messed up. Because you see, the reason why we keep this neighborhood safe, the reason why we keep showing up is because we know about all the mamas, the big mamas and big daddies that did everything they could to make sure that we have an opportunity to have what we have today. And we're not going to let you take that away from us. It's important that you know, as I walked up and down the street, it's important that you know that I saw your graffiti. And I've got news for you. We may use some of those words privately, but they are never public. And I want you to recognize that we don't appreciate you using curse words in your graffiti. But I've got something for you, because some of you asked the question, are you with us? That's what some of the graffiti was before it got washed off or painted over today. I'm so glad you asked the question. No, we are not with you. No, we will not be with you. No, we will not stand with you. But the question isn't whether we are with you. The question is, are you with us? Because the reality is, this isn't even your issue. This is us who had the knee at our neck. And we are saying to you, it's time you not be part of the problem, but that you be part of the solution. And so I want to say, as I close today, a reminder that as I saw that graffiti, I thought about the fact I'd like to give you, and since you're taking instruction and you're hearing what we have to say, take this instruction. I want to give you some verbal graffiti. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. In whom shall I be afraid? You need something else? I'm so glad you asked. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You didn't get that? Let me go to Isaiah 43 and remind you that when we go to the river, we will not be swallowed up. When we go to the fire, we will not be burned, because we've got a God that sits high and looks low, and he's right here with us, and he's the strongest power against you and what you try to do. God bless you.
Right now, well, we just had church. The drums have begun, and the organ is playing, and a few people are slamming their tambourines and dancing around and saying, amen, hallelujah, one more again. Thank you so much, community, for showing up today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And for those that might stay around just for the press, you can interview or ask questions for those that are willing, but we do ask you to honor their space. It is exhausting sharing your story. So if they ask not to, please don't bother them. But for those that are willing to stand and speak, this is an opportunity for all of our communities of color to allow your voice to be heard. And so those press members, please make sure you identify yourselves as you approach these members so that they know where you're from and who you're reporting from. Thank you so much, everyone.